What up, your boy TrendsetterSense, of course, Rhythm and Streets, man. And this is a special edition Rhythm and Streets right here, man. I got a very, very, very special guest, my brother. A diamond selling, Grammy award winning, one of the most accomplished producers in music, period, no matter what genre it is. And we're gonna dive into the journey of this good brother here, man. I've known this dude for a long time.
Yeah.
We went to school together. Shout out Clark Atlanta University. We're gonna dive into all of that stuff. Bryan-Michael Cox.
Yeah, man. What's up, my brother DJ Sense?
Hey, man. I couldn't do Rhythm and Streets without you, brother.
Oh man, I mean, we have so much history.
Right.
And beautiful history
Yeah.
of our journey in this business together. And I was watching, of course, we've been talking about this for a minute.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
seeing you make it come into fruition and really, really execute is, I mean, it's what you do though. It's like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I'm not surprised. You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate it.
But
yeah.
it's a beautiful thing, man. I'm happy you called me. I was like, man, I'm coming, bro. Like, we ain't done. We've never done this. We always do this.
It's always something musical,
time.
studio,
Yeah.
But to actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm so glad to have you here, man, because like being, a creative and a producer, we get to dive into like just the creative aspects behind all these great things that you've been a part of, man. But let's go all the way back to the beginning, man. Houston.
Yeah.
Born and raised, man.
So I was born in Miami.
That's right.
Born in Miami.
Yeah.
Raised in Houston. I spent all my summers in Miami and the Bahamas and all that.
So hold up. When did you go to Houston?
My mom moved to Houston when I was, I think maybe 1 or 2.
Okay.
And then I moved back to Miami with my grandparents for like first like year or 2 of elementary school.
Okay.
And then came back to Houston with my mom.
Okay.
So I basically, but I spent every summer up until I was like maybe 16.
Okay.
In Miami or in the Bahamas or wherever. You know what I mean?
The Bahamas.
Yes, my family's from the Bahamas.
Wow. All this time I've known you. I did not know that.
That's funny, right? My family's from the Bahamas. So actually on both sides too. My father's family, their origins in the Bahamas also. So
wow.
Yeah.
So talk about the early influences, man. Like what was driving Bryan-Michael Cox like as a child, like going through these journeys?
We know it's ill, and I think we talked about. Of course, we talk about a lot of things, but my journey started. My whole family. I come from a family of musicians, people who love music. Everybody played in the band. They played in church. Singing. My mom played piano and flute and all these different things. So I grew up in a very musical family. You know what I'm saying? Very, very. They just really love music. Like my mom had the ill record collection, and my aunties had wild record collection, and that's where it started for me. Literally at home, my mom, my aunts, my uncle.
Okay.
That's where their love for it really started.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And my love for like records and wanting to play records from top to finish and looking at the credits and seeing. I was a little kid doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
Open up the liner notes in the album and reading who wrote what and grasping, you know what I'm saying? Starting to grasp the idea of like what is what. I didn't even realize that was happening. When you're a kid, you just kind of like, you're interested in whatever you're interested in. But I didn't realize that I was actually shaping or figuring out in my little mind who does what. And I'll never forget when it clicked for me one day. Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, huge, obviously. I was like maybe 6.
Right.
It came out 82, so I was 5. I was 6 when it blew up, 83, right? What I remember is, my mom, because everybody had the album, my mom bought the album, and I remember in my mind looking at the back of the album, and there were like 9 songs, and then it's like produced by Quincy Jones, so Quincy Jones Productions, right? But it was a big Quincy Jones Productions logo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember
with the Q. And and I remember saying to myself, like, he has to be important because there's like, there's only 2 logos on the back of this album. It's Epic and it's his logo.
Yeah.
Why is his logo on the back? Why does it even matter?
So hold up, you're like 6 years old and you figuring that
6
out?
or 7 when it's like in my mind, because there were a few things that happened that way, right?
Yeah.
That was one. And then my family, huge Earth, Wind & Fire fans.
Okay.
Right? And we had every Earth, Wind & Fire album, right? And if you read any of the credits on Earth, Wind & Fire, it's very consistent. Produced by Mariah's wife for Kalimba Productions. There's a Kalimba Productions logo on every Earth, Wind & Fire album.
Wow.
And those are the two things that I just couldn't wrap my mind around. Like, these guys must be the architects. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to do what they do. I didn't know. I didn't have any idea what it meant. I just felt like I didn't want to be on the front of the record. I wanted to be on the back of the record. I don't know why. I don't even know how that. You know what I'm saying? How that actually manifested itself. I just knew I wanted to be on the back of that. I want to be on the back of the record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
And my mom saw it. I will say this: my mom and aunts, like literally, they saw the interest early, and just said, "Okay, this is what Bryan's into."
Okay.
And everybody just kind of poured into that.
So hold up, you were like, Mom, like I want to like. Was it an instrument? Was it
piano.
Yeah, okay.
So it was like, oh, I want to play. And then my auntie Sheila, heard me singing or something, as a kid, and was like, you can sing. And they used to, kids do little talent shows for your family and all kinds of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, of course, church. Growing up in church. So then me and my Auntie Vivian would sing together in church all the time. We'd do these songs together. But that was when I got a little older. So it just, I was surrounded by it, man. My Auntie Adrian, who's my godmother, I used to be at her house all the time, and she used to have like this beautiful stereo system, bro, like crazy, right? The system's like, back in the 80s. Yeah, you know what I mean? The component joint, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she had this beautiful stereo system. They had like a remote, it was like a remote control turntable. So you had a straight arm turntable where they kind of went to the side and drive with it was ill, like crazy. And she named the stereo system Zeus. And I was always, out of all my cousins, because I always showed interest, and I took care of their stuff. Mom would let me, play the stereo, go through her records, play the stereo. And my aunt all my aunts have really eclectic taste when it comes to music.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So for my...
give me a breakdown.
Okay, so for example, my godmother, I'm talking about my Aunt Adrian, who's my godmother also. She was really into contemporary jazz, you know what I mean? But also really into like Sade and really into Anita Baker and really into that type of stuff. But put me on to Michael Franks, put me on to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Certain things that she was into. My Auntie Jackie, who I think probably has the most eclectic taste.
Okay.
Because she would go from, Shalimar to like, Steely Dan.
Okay.
And Asia and then Howard Johnson and Kashif, and then like her and Earth, Wind & Fire. Like her taste was was crazy. And and here's the deal, dog. You think about kids now, and I don't know what people's family structures are. You know what I mean? In this new age, but I think back to my family. I spent a lot of time with my aunts. You know what I'm saying? I spent a lot of time with my mom too.
Yeah.
But it's like, as kids, we all spent a lot of time with our aunts and at our aunts' houses.
Okay.
And, you know what I mean? And that's where a lot of my developmental space of music,
I get it,
came from.
I get it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like being, because on the DJ side, being in the club with you so many times, and like, you would be pulling up records and, bro, your library. I'm like, and then now you telling me, I'm like, that's
everybody had an eclectic taste and different taste. You know what I'm saying? Like my mom was really into. My mom was into contemporary jazz also, but she was into funk. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like George Clinton, Herbie Hancock's funky albums. My mom was really into like that. You know what I mean? Roger and Zapp and things of that nature. And so we had all those records too.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then my mother also loved Queen, David Bowie.
Okay.
Thomas Dolby.
Yeah.
Records that.
Oh, you diving in the 80s.
You know what I'm saying? Records that, that like I remember my mom would go to the record store I can't recall exactly what New Music Day was back in those days. But there was a record store in Houston called Soundwaves. It's still open. They have Soundwaves. It's still open right now.
You really?
In Houston, Texas, yes. And my mother used to go to Soundwaves, and she had a friend named LJ that was, I call my aunt, when I was a kid. They would go to Soundwaves every week and just pick up 4 or 5 records. That's how our record collection grew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every week, 4 or 5 joints, what's the new? My mom was a huge Prince fan. Like Prince was her, like,
right.
You better tell it, Prince and Baby Daddy. You know what I'm saying? But like every week, okay. And what they didn't know that they were doing at that point was actually educating me. They had no idea. They just like music. Right. They just kicking it.
Right.
They throwing house parties. They, you know what I'm saying? Kicking it. But for me, I was always drawn to the sounds. Like what is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was a little kid, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking all these records I'm talking about is like 82, 83, 84, 85. Like I was a little kid. This is before I was 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you are developing a taste before you get to, because at 10, I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like we start developing our own taste at a certain age. We may have, our parents might be playing, we might be, surrounded by our parents and aunts' music, and we may like it because that's what we hear every Saturday when they're cleaning up or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But around like 10, 11, I feel like the kids start developing their own taste.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember when it happened for me.
Okay.
I distinctly remember when I was like, oh, this is the music that I like.
And what you talking about?
So it was Guy. It was Teddy Riley. It was Guy, I'll Be Sure, Keith
88,
Sweat,
89,
87, 88, really,
Yeah.
Like right before, because New Jack really blew up in 89. Like it was 88, 89.
Okay.
But I'm saying like 87, 88, 5th grade, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just remember we went, in Houston, we used to go to this, all the 5th graders at the end of the school year will go to this thing called camp. So Camp Olympia, Camp Cullen. If you're from Houston and you went to school at HISD in the 80s, you went to one of these camps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember going to camp. Camp is 7 days. Been in 5th grade, 1987. That felt like a month, right?
Yeah.
Come back from camp, and I remember in the car with my mom, and the radio was on, and hearing these records kind of back to back. Groove Me.
I remember those
I
times.
Want Her.
Yeah.
Night and Day. All these records back to back on the radio. And I kind of feel like they probably were playing the records like that already. You know what I'm saying? But it just felt like I left and came back, and all of a sudden these records were, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I remember being like, oh, and my mom being like so into Guy, because Guy sounded like the Gap Man to her. So it was like, oh yeah, I like Guy. These little young niggas like the Gap Man.
I see it.
Sound like Charlie Wilson. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I remember her buying the Guy album. And I just remember, as a kid at this point, I'm already reading credits. I'm already knowing what's what. And I remember reading the back of the credit, and it was like produced by Teddy Riley and Gene Griffin for GR Productions. And I remember being like, Teddy Riley. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever.
Right.
It just was like.
And all that was Teddy Riley.
Teddy. It was like, you know what I mean? Like, and then I started being like, well, let me go back a bit. You know what I mean? Because I loved the Control album, but I was really young. Control's
I know where you're
86, going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me go back a little bit and see what's what. And they said, oh, Jimmy and Terry. They had the logo. Jimmy and Terry, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, Flight Time Productions. So I'm like, oh, okay, I want to be a producer. Like it just literally, I was 10 years old. I was in 5th grade. And I remember, I want to be a music producer. I really didn't have no idea how I was even going to get there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I just knew that my favorite songs were made by these people. You know what I mean? Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, L.A. and Babyface, Teddy Riley, right? Now, mind you, because we the same age.
Yeah.
Think about, and you're from Philly, so you're closer to, you grew up closer to like hip hop,
right,
or like the, you know what I mean?
And I was going to get into that question, but go ahead.
So for me, it's also the discovery of what I like from a hip hop perspective.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So then it's Big Daddy Kane was one of my favorite rappers.
Okay.
L.L. was my favorite rapper.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
At the time. So then, okay, now I'm in this space where I'm asking my mom for tapes or money for tapes or whatever, or cassette singles and whatever. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm collecting Heavy D and the Boys. I'm collecting LL Cool J. I'm collecting, Big Daddy Kane. I'm collecting, X-Clan. I'm collecting Public Enemy. You know what I mean? And now I'm reading those credits now. So it's like, okay, now I'm starting to become familiar with people like Marley Marl, become familiar with Eddie F, Teddy, become familiar with, what's happening. Bad, the album that I really got into with LL Cool J was Bad.
Of course, yeah.
And Bad was like, LA Posse. And people don't even really know that DJ Pooh, who's the legendary DJ Pooh now, was in the LA Posse. He produced Bad. He produced the album.
Wow. See, I knew when you came here, it was going to get real educational musically. I already knew that.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then that made me go back to like, well, what was LL's first album? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember these songs going like, you go like skate parties as a kid. Okay, I remember records like Dear Yvette and Radio and things like that. It was like, who produced that record? Rick Rubin. Then, I'll never forget, we got me and my god brother named Jamel Johnson, one of my best friends growing up. We got our hands on a Beastie Boys record. And Paul Revere was like just
crazy.
One of the most, I still don't even, I have never heard anything like that in my life. You know what I'm saying? And was like, what's the common denominator here between LL Cool J and Beastie Boys and this Def Jam logo, and it was always Rick Rubin. So this is me now really
just figuring it all out.
Yeah. Okay. And so then, right, you get to a space where even if you don't know the music, this is how it was for me. Let's say I go to the record store at 11, 12. Even if I don't know the music, if I know the label,
right.
If I see a Def Jam label,
that Def Jam logo,
I'm okay. I don't even know who this is. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna buy it just to hear it.
Just because of the logo, just whoever it was. Yeah.
Just to hear it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is this a Cold Chillin' logo? I just want to hear it. I don't even know what this is. I don't even know who this is gonna be.
Right.
But I just want to hear it.
Right.
And I feel like around 10, 11, 12, that's like the coming of age.
Okay.
You can start going to the mall with your friends. You start going to skating rinks, movies. Your mama's starting to drop you off.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You know what I mean? It just becomes all of this stuff is a part of the development of that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So let me ask you, man. Like, how were you? Did you still didn't have an idea of what it is? You just already you had the vision.
I just knew.
Okay.
That I was interested in producers.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I would always be like, I would hear a record and I would want to go and find out. My first question as a 10, 11-year-old would be, who produced it? It wouldn't even really be about the artist. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I would hear a song I like oh, man, I like this Bobby Brown, Don't Be Cruel, man. Who produced that?
Right.
Oh, L.A. and Babyface. Okay. Right. Anything that, now I'm looking for anything that has L.A. and Babyface's name on it.
Got you, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At this point, it's like once I found, if I found a record I liked, and it was who produced it. Yeah. Now I'm looking for that producer. I'm looking for those sets of producers. Anytime I see L.A. and Babyface, or Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, or Marley Marl, you know what I mean? If I see anybody's names, I'm looking for that. So I'm going to buy it. You know what I mean? I don't even know what it look. I don't even know what it sounds like.
Right.
You remember back in the day on the cassettes, they'll put like the little sticker and it'd be like, oh yeah, production by so and so. Yeah. Oh, cool. I don't even know what this record is, but because these producers are on here, I want to listen to it and see what's there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it became like it just became second nature for me. Right. When it came to when I started really, really exploring and discovering music, and it was a beautiful time to discover music back then because everything was, you know what I mean? Yeah. It was everything was new. It felt like, hip hop was
new.
For
the internet. And,
Everything was just new. New Jack Swing was new. R&B had this flair to it in the late 80s that was just dynamic. It was like,
talk about it.
Just crazy. Yeah. So that's how, and people always talk about how knowledgeable I am. But it's because I literally that's all I did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like I would hear a song or on the radio or something like that, and I'd be like, "Yo,
Yeah.
who's that? I want to get that." And I would drive my mama crazy.
Right.
You know, like I want to get this album. Let's go get this tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And finally, my mom just started giving me allowance and like, "Yo, listen, there was we lived in these apartments on if you're from Houston, if you're from the southwest side of Houston, we lived in these apartments on Fondren and Beachnet. The apartments was called Fond Villa, 7,000 Fond Villa. I think they're called Forest Green. Now, they're still there, actually. The apartments are still there. And they built this big-ass Walmart right next door to the apartment complex. Now it's a school, which is crazy, but they built this big Walmart next door. And literally, my mother would give me allowance every Friday, and I would go to this Walmart and buy tapes.
Just go crazy.
Go crazy.
Yeah.
$10,
Yeah.
$15.
Yeah.
And my thing is, too, I wouldn't buy like full, I wouldn't buy full, I would maybe buy one full album. Let's say that tapes was $5 back then, $4.99 or $5.99 or whatever. So I'll buy one full-length album and then buy all cassette singles.
Yeah.
Because if I have $15, okay, I could buy one album and then 10 singles.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really interesting. I'm thinking about it. I haven't thought about this in a long time. You know what I mean? Like, it's really interesting to think about it, you know?
Of course, we got the world famous Bryan-Michael Cox. This is Rhythm and Streets, the podcast. Let's dive into, like, okay, you said your first instrument.
Piano.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, like, you as a producer. So was it like, okay, let me master the piano? Were you given another instrument?
That's a good question. For me, piano was something I naturally gravitated to because my grandmother played piano, and when I lived with my grandmother, she would, you know, I took lessons and all that when I was with her. So piano was something I gravitated to naturally. You know, you grow up going to church. My grandfather was a minister. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, grew up in church. You know, I wanted to. You know, church is like a subculture, right? If we want to just break it down, right? You have school, right? And what you do at school every day, what you do at home every day, Monday to Friday or whatever, right? And then church is this like subculture, right? That is faith-based, but it's like a whole different set. I got a whole different set of friends, a whole different setup. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because at church, right? Sundays, we're there Sundays,
Right.
Wednesday nights,
Right.
Maybe a rehearsal,
Right.
a Friday night, Saturday night. You know,
Okay,
rehearsal,
so you
whatever,
playing
right?
in the church?
Yeah, playing in the church. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So that's really where I got my chops up at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was a part of my life.
Yeah.
And it's like if you extracurricular activities. It was like, okay, yo, if we go to church, okay, I'm going. What are we going to get involved in? You know what I mean? We got you know, the youth church. You know, the what are we doing?
Right.
Okay, cool. I'm into this sector. Kids is into sports. They do whatever the sports thing, and this sector kids is into music or theater or the arts.
Right.
And so in that, you get kind of caught up in that whirlwind of, okay, well, I'm doing arts, we're doing plays, we're doing musicals, we're doing...
I got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's fragmented. It was very, very separate from, like, what I was doing, like, at school and what I was doing in the neighborhood and what I was doing.
So
around.
you were feeling like it was like you were jumping in two worlds.
Yeah, there was definitely two worlds. Definitely
Okay.
two separate worlds. They didn't start coming together till actually commingling until I got into high school.
Okay.
And I started. I befriended me and like Robert Glasper became best friends, and
Wow.
me, Robert, and my other best friend Troy, we all became. Really
Wow.
tight.
I did not know that y'all were.
No, he's my best friend. Like,
Wow.
Like I'm his son's godfather. He's my son's godfather.
Wow.
We've known each other since '93.
Wow.
So it was my second year at PVA, and it was his first year.
Okay.
Like I've known Rob for a very long time. One of my dearest
And
friends.
PVA, that's
It's just PVA. It's a high school.
okay. Is it performing arts?
High school for performing visual
Okay,
arts.
got
yeah.
you.
So, a lot of people went there. You know.
You went to school with Beyonce,
Yeah,
right?
Beyonce and LaToya.
Wow.
Yeah, they were freshmen when I was a senior.
So did you do, like, I read that you did her first demo?
So no, they really did my first demo.
Okay,
Let's keep it a buck.
Okay,
they were already recording and doing, you know what I mean?
Okay. Oh wait, they were already like.
They were signed. It was.
But were they out?
No.
Did they have? Was the name Destiny's
No,
Child?
they weren't out yet. They were not released yet.
Okay.
But they had signed. They were signed to Columbia Records when we were high school already.
All
right. Basically, I mean, I guess the short of it is, we all came up in this thing called the People's Workshop.
Okay.
Right. And the People's Workshop was like all these kids in Houston, talented kids in Houston would compete for this thing. At the end of the People's Workshop, it was like the Sammy Davis Jr. Awards or something like that.
Got you.
So we all was a part of this whole thing. And then they came to my high school.
Okay.
LaToya and Kelly, LaToya and Beyonce came to my high school. And our high school was 600 students. So it's, all the black kids, if you a black kid, you with us. You know what I mean? Like, you get befriended pretty quickly. You know what I mean? So we all, became fast friends. And close. Like fast friends is super close. And then of course, I knew Kelly, I knew Latavia. We all, Kelly went to I think Kelly went to Lamar, Latavia went to Eisenhower. I think close school. And we all just we always would kick it, you know what I mean, and talk about, what we want to do with our lives and this, that, and the third. And Beyonce and LaToya, they carried themselves. I knew that they were signed, but a lot of people didn't know they were signed.
Okay.
So they carried themselves like very, very with a large amount of humility. It was like, as a kid, it's almost like they knew, like, what we're embarking on is kind of unbelievable. So let's not shit on these kids here.
Wow.
At the school. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause they could have easily been on some like, man, shit on these kids. We signed the Columbia Records. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they were really like beautiful spirits, just a great, you know what I mean? And was inviting, very inviting. And I remember that how I even got a chance to go in the studio with them was I would always drag Beyonce and LaToya in like a practice room, like, yo, I got this song. And not really knowing that they were really signed. I mean, I knew they were signed, but I didn't really understand the actual impact of it. Yeah. We was just really into music. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Beyonce never sang at school, but I knew she could sing. So it was like, I'd be like, yo, show you this other song, whatever. And then finally one day she was like, yo, I want you to write a song for me. I want you to write a song for my group. Wow. Because we was talking and we had been talking and kicking it and and then dating them with chord progressions every day. You know what I'm saying? Right. And one day she just was like, I'm gonna call my dad and we're gonna, and we had a session. Wow. And Kelly and Beyonce came to the session. And Miss Tina bought us Burger King and all kinds of shit. It was crazy. And I always tell people I credit that session. So think about it. Leading up to that, I want to be a producer, but I didn't really know how to go about it, right? Sounds like I'm being groups. I was in a group, me and my boys had a guy group together, and, you know what I mean? I'm singing and, trying to do choreography. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? The dancing and everything. Yeah, trying to go crazy with it, right? But I never had a moment that was like a moment that says, oh, no. Not only this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do. And that session with them was that moment for me.
Is this the moment Bryan-Michael Cox knew his purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. If I had a desire to be a producer all the way up until then, and I was, I was doing it. I was trying to, I was claiming it. You know what I mean? I was, but when we did that session and to throw things out at somebody and have them sing it back to you, and they do it like better than you even heard it, like it was crazy. and literally, that was the day I realized exactly how talented they were. You know what I mean? And how seasoned they were already. You know what I mean? Yeah. They were already super seasoned. And they weren't even, they might have been 13. They might have been 12. You know what I mean? Like in real life, they might have been like 13 years old. You know what I mean? Yeah. But they were so seasoned at that point. And I remember being like, oh, I mean, I knew a lot of girls that could sing, all the girls at our school would sing, want to be artists, you know what I mean? Right. But this was the one time it was like, oh no, this is different. Like this is something I never experienced. You know what I mean? Like, this is what it's supposed to be. Okay. And I was like, okay, if I could do that with them, if we could do that here, I got to be able to do it in another space. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my mentor at the time was still a dear friend of mine. His name is Greg Curtis. He's the one who actually gave me the keys to the studio and to learn, really get my, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I met him through a guy named Teron Mitchell, who actually saw potential in me early on.
Okay.
Right? Teron was in a group called Groove You, and me and his sister went to school together.
Okay.
Me and his sister were really good friends.
Okay.
And my best friend Troy, who I mentioned earlier, they knew him, and we all kind of just, you know what I mean? Another best friend named Scooby, we all got together and was like, T was helping us as a group and all that. You know what I mean? So it was, Houston had this really interesting dynamic when it came to the music business in the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, because like when I think of Houston, I'm thinking Ghetto Boys.
Yeah.
I'm thinking DJ Screw.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, in that era, right?
Yeah.
You understand, Screw in that era was like our homegrown. It was just, it wasn't the phenomenon that it is now.
Okay.
It was just people go to Screw House and get a tape.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
It was a phenomenon in the city, but I don't think that they even imagined it was going to be how it ended up.
Right.
It was literally pull up, in the hood, everybody, people copying Screw tapes. Like, you got a tape.
Right.
Let me get your tape and dub your tape. Like, it was, one of those kind of situations. And that culture was something that was just that's just, I think, innate to Houston natives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, though, being at PVA and being a person who was really into R&B music, that was fun. You know what I mean? That was like, you go to the party, kick it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
But I didn't really understand how big it was going to be myself neither. Like, oh, this is just some party music. But that shit ended up being like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The culture really,
Right.
But if you were there in the middle of it,
it's like, that's what it is.
You had no idea that I had no idea. We had no idea that we were building culture.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as a person who was into R&B music, and we had a lot of people there who were kind of unsung. So Greg Curtis was one of them. Greg Curtis is a person who he wrote and produced "Just a Prayer Away" for Yolanda Adams. Then he's a legend in the gospel field, and then he is a legend as a musician and an MD. So he was MD for people from Blackstreet and for Keith Sweat, for Tony Tone, and he just was like, we have people who are legends in that space. So it's him, Chris Dave, Luke Austin, these people who are legends in that space. And they were our heroes, you know what I mean? And Greg had a studio. He had like the first time I ever been to a home studio was his studio. He had all this beautiful equipment set up, and I was like, this shit is crazy. You know what I mean? And he was the one that was like, yo, I'm gonna let you come here and just work it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Figure it out. And literally, the only thing, he would buy me tape. You know what I'm saying? Because we had the D88, the little tape machines. He would buy me tapes. He would let me go in there and just do whatever I needed to do. Buy me dad tapes. He was just like, yo, man, I see it in you. Just whenever I'm not here, man, this is all you.
Nice.
And that's literally how I.
And this is when you started bringing in all the arranging.
Yeah. Because I started really understanding how to do it. You know what I'm saying?
What was the first production equipment that you...
The first production equipment I ever had was a keyboard called a Korg. Was it a Korg? No, M1.
Okay.
Korg M1 keyboard.
Okay.
And then from there,
the MP.
But when I got to Atlanta,
okay,
that's when Atlanta changed my whole perspective.
That's what we was about to get to.
Atlanta changed my whole perspective, totally different.
Okay, so we graduated high school. Bryan-Michael Cox, I read where it was either L.A., New York, or Atlanta, because that was, now he knows this is what
I want to do.
This is what he want to do.
Yeah.
So out of the three, why was it Atlanta?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, Atlanta was I was in love with this girl, and her name.
Now the real comes out.
Yeah, I was.
We
in
thinking
love.
it's music.
Now I was in love, and I thought this lady was gonna be like the love of my life and forever.
So
love
you
her,
followed
whatever.
the girl.
And I followed her.
Okay.
And she's a different to this day.
Okay.
And I, but I graduated high school. So I stayed a year in Houston.
Okay.
She was a year behind me.
Okay.
Stayed a year in Houston. And then when she told me she was going to Atlanta, I was like, well, we going to Atlanta. We going, right? And that was really what narrowed it down for me because I was really leaning towards New York.
Okay.
Because Robert was going to New York, and I had one of my dear friends, Tanisha, was living in New York already. So I already knew I was really leaning towards New York initially. And then when she told me she was going to Atlanta, I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to Atlanta. And I gotta give her props. Like I followed her like in every step of the way. I followed her not only to Atlanta, I followed her to Clark.
She went to Clark.
She went to Clark. She graduated from Clark.
Do I know this girl?
You might know her.
Do you want to reveal names?
Yeah, I can remember. Yeah, Judith Franklin. Judith Franklin.
I don't know if I know Judith.
Hey, Judith.
Well, she's out
Baby
there
girl.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. So we at Clark.
We're at Clark. And my only objective is to get on. Literally. I came to Atlanta specifically to do that. So school was secondary, even though I did well in school, and I got a band scholarship, a piano scholarship, all these different things.
Yeah.
Mr. Boozer hooked me up. I was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was not focused on anything that was remotely happening at school. You know what I mean? Outside of going to class, doing the band shit, and that's it. I was not really remotely. I was not thinking about anything else. But how do I maximize my time in Atlanta?
And that's funny that you say that because you locked in, like you still in school. And tell me how. What was it that connected you when you were in school, and then you started making some really progressive moves?
So what happened was, one day I'm going to class. So I'm saying, I don't know, back in the day we didn't have, we didn't have Google and none of that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when I first got to Atlanta, my first week, man, I got the white pages. I'm marking out studios that I, in my mind.
Wow.
In my mind, reading credits.
Yeah.
I knew what Doppler was. I knew what DARP was.
Wow.
I knew what Lococo was. I knew what Patchwork was. I knew all these studios based on credit reading.
Wow.
So opening up, highlighting all the studios that I think that I, could remember.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
That is crazy.
And started calling studios.
Wow.
Like trying to get internships.
This freshman year?
This is my first year. My first year. My first year at Clark. Trying to get internships. I mean, like the first week. Like the first week. Like the first
you
week of school.
playing when you said it wasn't. Yeah.
Right? Calling. And it was such a hard way to get internships back then. It was so they made it so difficult.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They made it so difficult to get
It was
internships.
like a process, like interviewing for a job.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It was second. So I just kept at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I would learn new studios. Okay, well, cool. Oh, Purple Dragon is over here. Okay, let me add that to the list of studios.
Okay.
I just, as I would learn new studios in the city, I would go to the white pages and mark the number, write it down.
White pages. No Google.
No nothing,
internet.
Baby. You know what I'm saying? Nothing.
No, just
the white pages. So then what happened was one day I was going to class. It was raining crazy. Now I'm on the promenade. I'm kind of running through class, trying to run through the rain. And it was raining so hard, I was like, I got to take a break. So I go under like a tree. It's like in front of Student Center. There's like a big tree that's right by the Student Center.
I know exactly the one
and I
you're
stood
talking
under
about.
the tree to try to get some relief.
Yeah.
I look down and there's a flyer on the floor. And the flyer is, remember back in the day, we go on campus, they always, the labels had all the campus tagged with all the promo or whatever.
Yeah.
So there was a flyer on the floor, and the flyer was like, if you're looking for banging beats, call this number. And it was like the Noontime Hitman, and it was like
Noontime.
J-Dub,
Jazzy Faye, Teddy Bishop, and all these names.
I remember
on it,
this.
right? It had all these names on it.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you're looking for banging beats, call this number. We got records with Brandy, Boyz II Men, Puff. They listen to them. I'm like, I need to call these niggas. So I need to call this. So I picked up the flyer.
Yeah.
And just went about my way to class. And then when I went back home, when I got back home, called. And what I would do is, and this is the thing, when you want something and when you feel like you're destined for something and when you know, consistency is key, right? And there's a fine line. I always knew that there was a fine line between being consistent and being persistent and being annoying.
Right.
So I always had a strategy like, well, listen, I'm not going to call these motherfuckers every day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What I'll do is on Tuesday at 3:30, I'm going to call them every week, Tuesday, 3:30 on the.
So hold up, you 18 years old, 17, 18.
I was turning 19.
19. And this, you strategizing.
Yeah.
Like you in your late 20s,
Yeah,
early
I was
30s.
like, yo, here's what I'm gonna do. Because I was like, I don't want nobody to feel like I'm bothering them. You know what I mean? I know people got lives and shit.
Right.
So I was like, I'm gonna call this number every Tuesday at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, whatever. And I know that they're gonna see my number every week. Eventually, somebody's gonna answer the phone. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
And somebody did answer the phone. The first time somebody answered was April Love. April Love was working at Noontime.
April Love, yeah.
And she answered the phone. And we were supposed to set up a meeting or whatever. I think shortly after that, she might have left or like moved on to another job. So I didn't hear back. But I kept calling. Tuesday, 3:30 or 4 o'clock, whatever. Finally, somebody answered the phone. It's fucking Chris Hicks. You know what I mean?
Shout out to Chris.
And for him, what it was they had all the numbers, the office numbers was forwarded to his cell number because he was like on vacation or some shit, but they still needed to get like calls or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he answered the phone. And I was like, hey man, you know, Bryan-Michael Cox, I've been calling for about 2 months.
Wow.
Trying to, you know.
2 months, bro?
Yeah, I talked to April Love, I talked to this one. He was like, well, April don't work with us no more, whatever. He's like, yo, come to the studio. Here's the address, come to the studio. And I'll meet with you. Cool. So maybe a couple days later, I'll go meet Chris. The day that I meet Chris, I meet a producer by the name of K-Fam. So I meet K-Fam the same day, right? But because I get there before Chris gets there. So I get there, K-Fam's in the studio, and he's working on something, right? So we meet, cool. He's like, yeah, Chris be expecting something on the couch. And he's working on something. And he's trying to find this chord. Like he's trying to figure this chord out. And he can't figure it out, right? And I'm sitting on the couch, and I know the chord he wants to play.
Opportunity right there.
I know the chord. I'm like, I know the chord. I know the chord he wants to play. I didn't even say anything. He's looking, he looks back, he's like, hey man, you play? I was like, yeah. He was like, man, I'm trying to find this chord. Help me find it. I was like, oh, God, this is the chord right here. And I'm showing the chord. He's like, oh yeah. I said, yo, man, I was back here dying because I was like, I know the chord. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I show him the chords, this, down the third. He programs it, whatever. And he's like, man, it's like, dog, that's crazy that you heard that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when Chris comes, before me and Chris even get to talking, K-Fam says, hey, Chris, man, this kid, man, his ear is crazy, man. I was trying to figure this chord out. I couldn't hear it. And he figured it out like right off the top, man. This kid, I don't know, man.
Wow.
I didn't even tell K-Fam I was there for producing because I was not there to produce. I was trying to get an internship.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My whole point was like, let me just get in the door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I knew where I was developed from a developmental perspective as a producer. And I felt like I wasn't quite up to par with everybody. You know, things I've been hearing in Atlanta, I'm like, oh, this shit sounds crazy. I'm not ready. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's nothing too. The major key to success is being honest with yourself too and knowing where you want to go. Right. I'm not ready yet. How do I make myself be that good? Right. And you will yourself to that.
Yeah.
Work yourself to that particular perspective. And so me and Chris have our meeting. Chris tells me straight up, I'm not looking for a producer. I was like, I'm not here to produce. I want to intern. I want to assist engineer. I just want to get in the door.
Nice.
He's like, cool.
Nice.
So he let me in the door. And I was interning, then I quickly moved to like an assistant engineer, right?
Wow.
And then so I started getting paid. You know what I mean? It was like maybe $100 a session or something like that. But
Yeah.
first, Clark, nigga, $100 a session.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's good money.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
saved up like maybe $1,300, right? And I remember I was like, this is all the money I'm ever gonna need. Because my school was paid for basically. All I was eating was damn near, oodles and noodles.
Right.
And fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
$1,300, that's a lot of oodles and noodles.
Right,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I'm like, I don't really need no more money.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Chris and going to Noon, like, hey man, guys, I just want access to the studio. Like, you ain't got to pay me no more. Just, can I have a key to the studio? And Noon was like, hell yeah. We ain't got to pay you? I'm like,
Wow.
I saved like $1,300. I was like, yo, let me get the key. They gave me the key to the studio, and literally any downtime I had, you know what I'm saying? Anything that I was in that studio, learning how to use the drum machine, because in Houston we weren't using MPC. I was using MPC. Niggas using ASR 10s.
Yeah.
Niggas was using computers. We had Greg had a computer setup, so he was using this program called Performer.
Okay.
So I learned how to produce on a computer.
So did you teach yourself?
I had to.
Wow.
I had to. So on a drum machine, on an MPC 3000, they have a button, a help button. Right? So each section, you could press help, and it'll give you like a quick synopsis of what each functionality of the section does. So I was like using that help button like crazy. And then one day, I met Jazzy and Teddy already. I met J Dub.
All
so,
right.
because I was, interning and doing assistant engineer, so they knew who I was already.
Yeah.
And you never know who's watching you. You never know who's paying attention. You never know who's rooting for you and, behind the wings. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And Jazzy and Teddy were watching me. I didn't even notice. I didn't know that they were actually paying attention to me trying to learn and teach myself how to sample. So what started happening was Jazzy and Teddy, they would see me in there, and they would come in and give me pointers. Like, oh, you might want to do it this way. That might be a better way to do it. Or truncate your loop this way. Get rid of that extra space. You have more room on your disc so you can save. Boom, boom. So I would get these little jewels, you know what I mean, from Teddy and Jazzy every now and again. And Jazzy would be like, yo, do this with that. This is how you should. This is the faster way to get to this page of the drum machine. Okay, you need to be doing background vocals, sample the background vocal and fly the vocal this way. Like, I was learning these things, not even realize that they were only giving me this information because they had been watching me will myself through teaching myself how to around the studio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then eventually, Noonie just was like, yo, man, I want to sign you. You know what I mean? Like, it was like eventually it was kind of like, you're in college, you have a girlfriend. I was literally still, because I was, still in love with my girlfriend, so I was spending a lot of time with her too.
Right.
You're in college, you have a girlfriend, you don't have a car, yet you find a way to get here every day. You're in the band, you have a scholarship in band, you're in the piano, you're in the jazz band. Like, how are you finding the time to do all of this shit?
Crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it was just like, bro, what else am I doing? Like, this is what I want.
Right.
So it was like, Annie, you're in here before everybody else is here, you're here when everybody leaves. He was just like, yeah, man, like, I want to sign, I want to give you an opportunity.
Did you have a place? You weren't placing any songs?
I had no placements.
They just heard, they just knew.
I had no placements.
Crazy.
Noonie and Chris just was like, this little nigga is crazy. Like, he wants to be in here. Okay, let's get him before he actually gets good and somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of the journey for me with Noontime. They signed me, and they gave me some money. More money I had ever seen in my life. You know what I'm saying? At that point.
Okay.
And they gave me an opportunity. And they did it without even knowing what was going to come on the other side of that. Because I could have been a bust.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I could not have made one record.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And nobody don't take them kind of chances anymore. Everybody want to know what's in the pipeline, what you got going. Nobody want to take them kind of. They literally was like, we are signing this kid. He has no records. We don't even know what's going to happen with this kid.
Wow.
But something about him, he his tenacity is crazy, and I just really wanted it, man. Like, I wanted it. You know what I'm saying?
So where we going from here? Like, tell me how the work gets started.
So the work gets started. Initially, I'm making beats. You know, I hadn't really connected with a songwriter or songwriters at that, you know, other writers at the time. Me and Jonte had met and were friends already.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
Because I had a conversation with Jonte.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you bringing this up.
Yeah.
And he tells me that y'all became friends. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I want to talk about the Mariah Carey situation.
Of course.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
We can talk about it.
And he's like, B. Cox spoke for me
Yeah.
with Jermaine Dupri.
Yeah.
And that's how
it happened.
That's how it evolved, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so go back.
So me and Jonte, at this point I'm 19 going on 20. And I met Jonte, and Jonte was like 16.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so we were closer in age. We kind of just gravitated to each other. Everybody's kind of older, you know what I mean? Noon and Chris, everybody's kind of like, you know, they're grown men. They got families, all kind of shit going on already. You know what I mean? So me and Jonte became friends, but we weren't working together initially. We just became homies.
Right.
You know what I mean? Jonte was working with Teddy Bishop, like almost exclusively.
Okay,
you know
got you.
So, Brian and Brandon Casey, the twins, would come into the studio. They were writing on everybody beats. Everybody with J-Dub, writing with Jazzy, right? And
Well, hold up. Now, were they already Jagged Edge?
they were already Jagged Edge.
Okay, well, they already was signed.
Yeah, they were signed, and the first, the Way That You Talk was out, and they were already moving, right? Their first album was already out.
Okay.
They were already moving. But they were coming down to Noontime writing. I think Ryan and them might have been co-managing them from a writer, co-managing their songwriting endeavor. I mean, I can't remember exactly how that deal was, but they were basically at Noontime every day.
Okay.
You know, whenever they weren't on tour or doing promo, they was at Noontime every day writing to somebody, whether it was Jazzy's Beats, J-Dub, whoever, they was writing every day.
Got you.
Right? And Eric Roberson, too.
Okay.
Eric Roberson was another person who literally, gave me the confidence. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So Jagged started asking about me because I would just I was making records with Eric Roberson.
Okay.
But Eric was in and out, you know, because he's on tour doing his independent thing. And so Jagged had asked about me. Brian and Brandon asked, like, who's the kid? Like, this kid that's in this room and nobody's going in this room and, you know, where's this kid?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So Chris was like, yo, I'm hooking meeting up with you and Jack and you and Brian and Brandon. I was like, cool. So we have this meeting and we do a song. In our first 20 minutes of meeting, we do a song together.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And we realized, oh shit. You know what I mean?
Chemistry.
This is some chemistry, some real shit going on. At that point, we were joint to the hips.
Right.
So we're making songs. In the middle of us making songs, Gotta Be blows up, right?
Wow.
This song, Gotta Be, blows up, becomes this massive hit. And they now are starting to go on, you know, all these promo runs, tours, whatever, right? So, but we were just writing songs. Like, and if I'm correct, and I think if Brian and Brandon see this, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm correct, we were trying to get placements on Social Deaf Artist. So we made a bunch of songs, right?
Yeah.
And they were supposed to go meet with Jermaine about us getting placements like on Escape and on, you know, he was working on Usher, and working on this one and that one, Lathan, all these artists that were signed to the label.
Yeah, yeah.
We were just trying to get songs placed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
We did not go into that saying we're making a Jagged Edge album.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right.
We went into it saying, okay, we're going to, I think it might have been 15, 16 songs that we had made.
Wow.
So we're going to take these 16 songs, play them for JD, and he could spread it out amongst the, you know, the label.
Wow.
You know, we could put it on this artist, that artist, whoever he's working on. He could take it and reproduce it and make it, you know, make it his. Like, we were just trying to just get songs placed.
Right.
And I wasn't at the initial meeting, right?
Okay.
They went and had this meeting with Jermaine, and, you know, I was waiting for them to let me know what the situation was. They come back, and they're like, Jermaine wants us to make an album.
Off of...
Yeah. It was like, Jermaine was like, this is y'all album.
Did you know JD?
No, I didn't know him at that point. I hadn't met him.
Okay, so this is also the establishment of y'all relationship.
Yeah, this is where me and Jermaine meet. I meet Jermaine through Brian and Brandon Casey.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Oh,
yeah.
Before you dive in, you know, when I look at Jagged Edge as a group, and this is respectfully, that's the Bryan-Michael Cox is the sound of Jagged Edge, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that we cultivated together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's so interesting because when it was like, we want to make an album. And I guess at that same time, Jermaine might have been in between collaborators because he was working with Manuel Seal at one point.
Okay.
And then I don't know if he was still working with Manuel or if they were. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know what was happening during that period because I didn't know him, so I wasn't there.
Okay.
Right. They're like, yeah, Jermaine wants to work with you, right? So initially, what I thought it was going to be, and what I think it was initially, was that we were all supposed to go over there, and work with Jermaine together, me, the twins, and JD. Okay. Right.
All right.
And it might have been some miscommunication going on there because I think Jermaine's perspective was like, we're just gonna finish this album. I thought we were just finishing the album. You know, I didn't know. So I swear, I didn't expect it. My expectations wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go over here, and then me and Jermaine gonna start writing songs together, and we're gonna write songs for all these other people. That wasn't really my expectation.
Wow.
My expectation was, okay, we're gonna go over here, we're gonna finish Jagged's album, and then, you know,
right.
we're good money.
Right.
So I go over there. But before I go over there to Jermaine's, they tell me Jermaine wants to meet you. You know, we're gonna go to this club. Remember Rio Mall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Piedmont Avenue.
Yeah, there was a club. There was a comedy club in Rio Mall that was Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker owned the club. It was a comedy club in Rio Mall.
Okay. Yeah.
And Jermaine had an artist named Trina Broussard.
I remember that.
Trina Broussard.
Yeah.
Had a showcase at this comedy club, or at this club or whatever, Chris Tucker's club, and Jagged was like, "Yo, we're gonna take you over to meet Jermaine because Trina's doing a, showcase." But I think I was too young to get into the club or some shit like that. I couldn't get in.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of wait outside for them. They went inside. I had to wait outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they came outside, and Jermaine came out, and I met him, and he was like, "Yeah, man, we're gonna finish this album. We're gonna finish this Jagged Edge album, whatever." And then him and Bob walked off. You know, and it was like, okay. And I didn't hear from him for like another month.
Wow.
It was like a month. I was okay, cool. Like, let's say that was like around Christmas time. I didn't hear from him till like February.
Wow.
But he called my house, right? Jermaine called my house. He's been at house phones, right? Called my house, and I had, come my homie staying with me, and he called the house like, yo, B Cox, just JD. And my man was like, this ain't no damn JD. Turn the phone up. And he came and said, yo, man, some nigga just called up and talking about he JD. I was like, no, that was him, man. What are you talking about? You don't got to go like star 69. Right. My friends ain't know, And then, like I said, I ain't had no car. I was driving Judith's car. Or I had a little bit of money from Noontime, but I didn't buy no car. I bought a crib.
Right.
And I remember Ryan, Chris, and Noonie had to take me to Jermaine's crib. And Terry came too. Ryan, Chris, Terry, they all came. They all took me down there. And I forgot who he was working with somebody.
Ryan Glover, you talking about?
Yeah, Ryan Glover.
Yeah.
Ryan Glover, Terry Smith, Terry Ross, Chris Hicks, Noonie Lee.
Right.
They took me down. And he was in the studio with somebody when I went there. I forgot who it was. And then we talked a little bit. And he was like, yeah, man, this is when he had to see at the house. And right up here.
Yeah.
Right up here. And he was like, yeah, man, come back tomorrow, and we're gonna finish up Jagged album. You know what I'm saying? Okay, cool. So I'm still not comprehending. You know, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about or whatever.
Yeah.
Come back the next day. The very first song we write is Keys to the Range.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And after that, it was just kind of like
gone.
Snowball effect. You know what I mean?
So, the He Can't Love Yous. And
see, those records were already, I'm sorry. He Can't Love You was the last song that we did for the album.
Okay.
The records that were done was like What You Trying to Do For It. We had an early version of Promise.
Woo.
We had Healing. We had Heartbreak.
He Can't Love You was literally in response because I was angry with my managers. I was angry. I was mad at Chris. One of the very, very few times I was mad at Chris because they had a group called Absolute that was signed to Noontime, right? And every song that, you know, if it was a good song, right, they'd be wanting to snatch the song up for Absolute.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So we had a song called I Don't Wanna.
Okay.
Right? Me and Brian and Brandon did that Jermaine loved, right? Mm-hmm. And they were like, Jermaine was going to be the first single. This, that, and the third. I'm like, really? You know? Whatever. Okay, cool. Boom.
Yeah.
So me and Chris's brother, Kevin Hicks, who plays guitar, we did the record together. And so there was a fight for this record because they wanted the record on Absolute. And usually I just would have let it go. But when they told me that Jermaine was going to make it the first single, I'm like, nah. I want to get his song to Absolute. I don't want to get his song to Jagged. You know, Jagged Edge had his song. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I remember Chris, we got into a heated debate. And he was like, you think you're gonna produce a first single on So Def by yourself without Jermaine? Basically like Jermaine Dupri only produces his first singles.
Right.
You know, you think he gonna let you do? I mean, we got into a real live argument. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they ended up taking the song, right? They ended up paying Brian and Brandon a really insane amount of money. They got way more money than I did for the song. and they ended up giving the song to Absolute. Cool. Whatever. I was so angry about that that I went to the studio. I'll never forget it. I was like, I'm going to make their first single today. We made He Can't Love You.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep. And then ended up having the first single anyway.
Yeah.
Which I think might have been the first time that it happened. I mean, outside of Social Def Bass All Stars, I think that might have been the first time that ever happened
Outside
in Social
of JD.
Def history, where the first single was produced by somebody else that wasn't Jermaine.
Wow.
I think that might have been the first time it ever happened outside of, I mean, like as far as with Escape and with all the artists he had.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the first time that ever happened.
So was that Bryan-Michael Cox's first major hit record?
This is debatable.
Okay.
Okay. Because at the same time I was working with Ideal.
Okay.
Ideal is my guys from Houston. You know, my cousin Donnie was the musical director for the group, and you know what I mean? So when I got signed to Noontime, their manager, her name was Carmonique. Carmonique was great friends with Chris. They went to Howard together, the whole nine, whatever. So Carmonique had called Chris like, hey, I want to send my guys down there. You know, they had just reforecast their budget. Ideal had been signed a version for with New Tribe Records initially, but turned the version. They been signed for me because they were signed before I left Houston.
Right.
Like we knew that they were going to come out with a record sooner or later.
Okay.
So, Carmonique calls Chris, tells him I want to send my guys down there to work with Noontime, whatever. They work out a deal. Chris calls me like, yo, man, you know these guys Ideal? I was like, yeah, I know Ideal. These are my guys. You know what I mean? So I now called Donnie. Donnie was not in the group, but Donnie was their musical director. So I called Donnie. I'm like, yo, Donnie, he's like, yeah, we coming down there. This is Thursday. So this is how Donnie Scance gets to LA.
Donnie.
Yeah.
My man Donnie Scance.
Through Ideal, because he was there like, he was there, he was like the head of their musical direction. He was the one doing all of basically, I would say almost like an executive producer.
Okay.
He was like their guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And Donnie was really, really advocating for me to work with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they came down, and we did, I forgot what song we did first. We did Creepin' first.
Okay.
So Creepin' was a song that Jagged Edge wrote, Brian and Brandon wrote a hook to, and we just left it open because they were on tour, and I was waiting for them to come back and do the verses, right? Ideal comes in the middle of this. Hear the track, hear the hook, loves it, right? We ain't got no verses. Called Jonte. Jonte comes and does the verses.
Okay.
This has got to be the first time that Jonte and Jagged Edge ever had a song together.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
They were a little mad when they got back and heard that I did the song, but I was like, we got to get this song finished. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it ended up being a hit, you know?
Wow.
It ended up being a hit. So then we do, and then, you understand, I was in the middle of working with Jagged. So I did this, we were doing What You're Trying to Do for it. And I remember Jonte coming in the studio like, yo, I want a record like that. Give me a beat like that.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, yeah, I'll give you a beat. You know, and I was kind of stalling because I was really, I don't know, procrastinating doing the beat. I was doing other shit, easily distracted. And John Tay coming like every day for like 2 weeks. Yo, where's my beat? Where's my beat, man? I need a beat like, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I need something. So I was like, damn, let me pull Kevin here. So I pulled Kevin in my room. I'm like, Kevin, let's come up with something real quick. A guitar. I gave him a progression. He played the guitars. So I let him sample the guitars, and I make this little skeleton of a beat.
Right.
Made a skeleton. It was so fast. Put on a DAT, gave it to John Tay. John Tay goes home, comes back, we get gone. So I'm like, oh, shit. I gotta make this track better. This track, you know what I'm saying? I just do something together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guys ended up, you know, they loved the song. My first time going to LA, I go to LA, cut the song with them, end up beefing the track up, we're doing the whole track, the whole nine. It was a whole thing. So I believe that Get Gone came out before He Can't Love You.
Okay.
Keys to the Range was out.
Okay.
But I feel like, I can't remember, you know, there's kind of a blur with the releases, but I think Get Gone came out first.
Okay.
And then He Can't Love You came out. And then it was just after that, it was just kind of like.
The springboard. So talk about the springboard, man, because that's when like
everything happened.
All the outside artists coming in. What year around this time is this?
This is 99 going into 2000.
Okay. So talk about, your relationship. This is when you and Jermaine Dupri start to, and then he comes to you, and like, what's the next record? The next major record that?
The next major record after Jagged was Mariah. Actually, we did a song. We did for album. She was working on Rainbow. This is in '99.
Okay.
So I only thought that Jermaine was gonna call me for Jagged Edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I did not expect to get calls for other artists.
Okay.
That was not my expectation. Then what happened was, we're doing Jagged Edge. In the middle of us doing Jagged Edge or finishing Jagged Edge or whatever, he calls me like, "Yo, Brian, can you come to the house?" I was like, "Yeah." So we got Mariah. We got Mariah today. I'm like, Mariah. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
We go to the crib, and I take my be young. Took my partners with me to the house. Just, partners going crazy. See Mariah, they going crazy. You know, I'm like, you got to calm down, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go in there and we make this song called How Much, right? How Much is a record with her and Usher. It features Usher. So this is my first time working with Usher too.
Okay, so this is also the introduction with Usher as well.
Yeah, but I didn't meet Usher at this session.
Okay.
We did the song, Mariah does her parts.
Okay.
Then they do Usher's parts away, and then me and Jermaine mix it, and I'm like, oh, Usher's on the song. I didn't know he was on the song, you know what I mean? Which is the only artist, Usher's the only artist that I was like, I have to work with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's the only artist, like, he was my favorite artist when I was a kid. He was just relatable, you know, his first album, even though people say, well, the success is so go, whatever, but I really fucked with his first album. And then when he came with My Way, it was just kind of like, oh, this nigga. I gotta work with this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was excited that I had a song that featured him on it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I was just like, man, I hope Jermaine called me for him. Like, call me. You know, he called me for Mariah, and great. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, I was starstruck. I was outdone about Mariah.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I really hope he calls for Usher.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I really hope. You know what I mean?
So the call comes.
But it didn't happen. Not immediately. This is still, you know, it's like we still filling each other out. Me and Jermaine still, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Jagger comes out, and then Jermaine really takes me under his wing. At this point. When J Heartbreak comes out.
Okay.
Then he's like taking me to conventions with him. You know, my first time going to, what was that, Impact? Remember Impact?
Yeah.
My first time going to Impact,
Yeah.
you know, 99. This is when the album was about to come out, about to drop. Destiny's Child's second album was about to drop. Writers on the Wall was about to drop. So Columbia was cross-promoting both albums. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this was my first time doing anything that was like industry, like super industry, outside of me being in the studio.
Right.
Go. I'm going back to Miami. The Impact is in Miami. It's my first time going back to Miami since I was 16. So now I'm going back to Miami as that, you know, this producer guy. You know, my cousins are like, you know, bugging out. It's just a real interesting dynamic, me going to Impact. It was real interesting. And Columbia had the Columbia Records Luncheon when they, you know,
showcase all the artists and all the records that are coming out. And Ideal was out. Ideal was out already because I remember I saw Matthew. I saw Matthew Knowles at the Columbia Records luncheon. Ideal came with me to the luncheon, and the record was already out. He was like, "Y'all got a record. This, that, and the third, but we coming." And he was talking about, yeah, that's the child. We coming. We gonna blow y'all head off. Matthew's super competitive. Yeah. But I knew him when I was a kid, so he always taking a liking to me, and we would talk. And he was like, "Your business straight, everything, they treating you good," just that kind of, you know what I mean? Yeah. Conversation. And Jagged performed songs off of J Heartbreak, and shit came out and it ended up blowing up. You know what I'm saying? And then it was a snowball. It was so cool. Now, as singles are dropping, me and Jermaine are working on more stuff, but I'm also working on a bunch of shit at Noontime still because I got an obligation at Noontime. Right. So now we get into me going off working with Aaliyah, me going off doing Tony Braxton, me going off doing all these wild projects for Noontime that was going to happen anyway, right? Yeah. But just the thing of the Jagged Edge stuff and the Ideal too. The Ideal record was a hit. Yeah. So between the Ideal record and the Jagged Edge record, and it just went crazy.
Do you ever think about like, was there ever like, who was Bryan-Michael Cox's like? Did you have like you said Usher, but was there any like a dream?
Mary and Faith.
Mary and Faith.
Those were artists that like. I really wanted to work with Mary J Blige. Because my thing is like, of course Mariah Carey, but to get that off the way that I got that off, like the first call after Jagged Edge is Mariah Carey, it was like, oh, okay, I got that one off the list. You know what I mean? So I'm watching it happen really kind of fast, like faster than I thought it would happen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So Usher was somebody, definitely, but Mary, I really, really wanted to work with Mary, right? And early on,
Be Without You.
But I'm saying, like by the time we get to Be Without You, I've been trying to work with Mary at that point for years. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I've been submitting songs to Don Poole and to all, you know what I mean? Yeah. You know, the original version of Superwoman, which is Superwoman for Lil Mo. Yeah. That version you hear is a remix. We did a version that was Superwoman Part 1 that samples Benny Siegel's Stop Chill. That version was actually a record for Mary.
Wow.
Right? me and Mo was writing records for the people.
Wow.
And then ended up being like, well, we sent the record to Don Poole and we didn't hear nothing. And then what's my man, Jay Brown and Merlin Bob, and we had Elektra, were like, you should put the record out there, Mo. We waiting on Mary, Wow. I don't even know if Mary ever heard the song. You know what I mean? Like, it's just in real life. You know what I mean? We were just waiting to hear back from somebody. Yeah. And Mo was like, I'm going to keep the song. And
wait, you talking about Forever?
No, Superwoman.
Superwoman.
Yeah.
Forever was...
Yeah, for me. Yeah. We were trying to sell that song too, though, also. But then that track, because Jagged had that track first. And they wrote a song called Pretty Everything to it. But then at the time, I'm sending tracks to everybody. And Mo sent that song back. And it was just like, oh... we gotta go with this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It was like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's Superwoman was for Superwoman Part 1 was for Mary.
It's funny, man, because you called me to the studio one time. We was working on the Rhythm and Streets, the mixtape series. Yep. You like, come to the studio, man. I don't even know you're working on Be Without You. I'm chilling. Yeah. And Mary just comes out. I'm like, who? I'm like, oh, it's Mary J Blige. Okay, my bad. Yeah. So that's funny. I remember that time, man. And I remember like when that song came out, that was my god sister's wedding song. Wow. And I went to the wedding. I'm like, my man just made this song. I used to tell my mom that. Like, that's my man made this song. And it's like, it's funny because there was a low point, like, in Mary's career, respectfully. And I feel like that song was like a resurgence at that time period.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, though, about artists, especially artists like Mary who are just legends, right? Right. You just never can count them out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I always thought it was unfair of the industry to count people out like that. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was unfair. Like she's Mary J Blige, bro. Like everybody has. This thing is ups and downs. You know what I mean?
Right.
So everybody's last record probably won't be as good as the record you had before, but the next record might be better than the record too. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is a journey that we're on.
Right.
Right? And I didn't think it was fair how they were handling Mary.
Right.
How the industry was handling her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because from what I gather, they were doing like a greatest hits album or something like that. And you know, when people say greatest hits, back in those days,
like,
it was almost like,
it was like it's over. It's like,
we're you're in the twilight of your career. Yeah. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Mary wasn't even 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like in real life, like Mary wasn't even.
Yeah.
Like how was somebody in their 30s in the twilight of their career?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The record industry will definitely write you off early as hell. Once you turn 30, 31, it's like, okay, yeah.
It's like.
All right, greatest hits. You know what I mean? And I think that if, you know, for the team she had around her at the time and where they were, I'm not saying with how it ended up. You know what I mean? But in that moment, it was about that they knew that she was way bigger and better than what the industry was.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Trying to portray her as.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they went after it. You know, Jimmy and Ron Fair and all everybody went after it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And me and Jonte were inspired because of when you making as many songs as we were making, and we were making hits and we were doing our thing, I don't think we had like the respect yet. You know what I mean?
Wait, when you make
with me and Jonte, when we made that for Mary, I don't think that we felt like, I think we felt like we were underrated.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Bro, this is after you produced the Diamond album with Usher, Confessions.
But to be fair, right?
Yeah.
Beneficial, beautiful process, right? Beautiful process. And I got credited, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, my name is there, I got credited.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But to be perfectly honest, that was, you know, that was me assisting Jermaine. That was me being a helpmate to Jermaine Dupri. You know what I mean? Which is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But the glory didn't come to me. You know, the glory, you know, like I got paid really well, by the way. I got paid. My splits were on point. My splits were super fair.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, Jermaine Dupri is Jermaine Dupri.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And Usher and JD were synonymous. They were known. They were hand in hand. So I'm, in essence, in that space, I'm just aiding.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
When it blew up and it went crazy, you know, I mean, it was about Jermaine. You know, it wasn't about, you know, it had nothing, you know, I got my money.
Yeah.
And I was able to, you know, do a lot of great things off of that Diamond release. You know, I had 4 songs on the album. You know what I mean?
Fire.
But plus the title record. You know, we wrote Confessions. You know what I mean? But Be Without You was like nobody could really take that credit.
Do you feel like that was the greatest Bryan-Michael Cox achievement musically?
Yeah,
you got a lot, bro. You got a lot.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think that it was a necessary thing to happen. It needed to happen.
Okay.
In order for me to get to that record is what separates me. That's what makes me Bryan-Michael Cox now.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I was Bryan-Michael Cox before, and everybody knew me, and I had my records. I did Tony Braxton, Aaliyah, all these different things. And I also did Jagged Edge, you know, I produced Jagged Edge, and I co-produced with Jermaine all these other songs.
Yeah.
But it was still kind of like, you know, it's kind of like I got a lot of titles.
Yeah.
I got a lot of singles. I'm just working on a bunch of different things. But I think when you have a massive pop record, and you understand, at the same time, at the very, very same time, that Be Without You was happening, right? Even though I didn't produce Where We Belong Together, that's happening, right? Which is my crew, right? It's my team.
Right.
Then it's Shake It Off is happening at the same time. You know what I mean? Then Like You, Bow Wow is happening at the same time. All these records are happening at the same time too, by the way. You know what I mean? So
that's crazy.
It's just
it's just that record was like so massive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was instantly massive. It was like as soon as radio got it,
Yeah.
it was like, oh,
Yeah.
this Mary record is crazy.
Let me ask you, man. That's crazy. Bryan-Michael Cox. The state of R&B.
Yep.
You're now the executive producer, VP, LVRN.
Yeah.
Which is known now as one of the top relevant labels that definitely is defined in R&B.
Yeah.
Summer Walker Black.
Yeah.
Alex Vaughn, who
yeah.
we've had on this show.
Yeah.
Talk about the state of R&B and the vision of Bryan-Michael Cox today, especially with LVRN.
Well, the state of R&B, to me, I feel like R&B is in a space where it's going to get shaken up, right? It's a lot of really, really talented artists coming up, or who are like really trying to shake the status quo. So like, you have an artist like Summer Walker who plays all these instruments. She's a super talented songwriter. She's a talented artist. She's talking directly to, she has a direct message to her, you know what I mean, audience, and they're eating it up, you know what I mean? She knows exactly where she's going as an artist. You have an artist like Coco Jones shaking up R&B with a record like I See You, which is really like a throwback feeling record. You know what I mean? No fats, no fillers, no trendy shit. That record's just an R&B record, and it's killing the charts, right? I just think it's going to be a shakeup.
Yeah,
there's a lot of really, really dope artists coming up who can sing, you can write. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they want to do R&B. They don't want to do trendy shit no more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
They want to talk the R&B shit. They want to do real R&B. And I think that is going to be, I think we're going to see that really, really grow even more in the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
With releases, people coming out. My vision right now is aging gracefully.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I have an immense amount of respect for the youth.
Okay.
Because that's where the culture is created, right? And I think that we should. I'm in a space where I'm in that mentoring. I've always been that, right? But I feel like now it's even more important. You know what I mean? So young producers like. We produced named 300, who signed to LVRN, who's incredible. He's 18 years old, 19 years old.
Nice, yeah.
And just an incredible young creative. I have a producer named Magic Jordan, who's an incredible creative. Young, really giving young creatives my knowledge, but also understanding where they're coming from and knowing that their point of view is extremely valid. And you can't be in a space where we're shitting on the youth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I like to see myself as like a coach.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And taking notes from like people like the great Rick Rubin and taking those kind of like figuring like ascending to that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's my vision.
The legend.
My man.
The legend. Diamond selling, Grammy winning. My brother, Bryan-Michael Cox. We could do this all
night, really.
Your discography. We're going to do a part 2. That's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. We should
do
definitely do
part 2, man. But I appreciate you.
Man, I
brother.
appreciate you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Bryan-Michael Cox, ladies and gentlemen. Bryan-Michael Cox. And this is Rhythm and Streets.
Trendsetter.